Hello, friends, and welcome to your midweek Kings of Anglia podcast. Welcome to the first KOA podcast since the big day, since Christmas, and welcome properly to the start of the Kieran McKenna era, which started in very impressive fashion last night. A 1-0 win at Portman Road in front of 26,000 plus fans, a win over Wycombe Wanderers, high-flying Wycombe Wanderers. What a way for McKenna to start his reign at Ipswich Town. I shall start this podcast today by introducing two of my fellow Kings, Stuart Watson having a well-earned lie down today. Mike Bacon still in Hollywood negotiating a film deal after the success of his book. So I'm joined, I'm pleased to say, by Andy Hutchman, Hutch Hogan, Michael Hutchins, all those other stupid names I come up with. Warren, how are you, my friend?
I'm all good. You?
I'm good in the hood, thanks, friend. I am literally in a hood today, as we all are. Style gurus that we are. Roscoe, young Roscoe, the prospect. How are you, my friend?
I'm very well, thank you. It was good to be back at Portman Road last night, and the Kieran McKenna new manager bounce, baby. Is that what we're going to phrase it now?
We'll come on to that in due course. First of all, obviously, boys, it has been Christmas since we last spoke. So I have to ask, I'm legally obliged to ask, how was your Christmas? What was your highlight? Hutchie, I'm going to start with you. I know you don't really do presents. So what was the highlight of your Christmas?
It's just with my wife that I don't do presents. I do buy presents. I do buy presents for other people. Got a new roasting tin.
Nice.
That's my highlight. The highlight was getting the new roasting tin from my mother-in-law. Thank you very much. Low light was it's too big for the oven, so
you need a new oven.
Yeah, just get a new oven. If she's going to sort that out as well, probably. But yeah, need to switch my new roasting tin for an appropriate roasting tin. But it is a very good roasting tin. It's probably enough about roasting tins now.
So you didn't have a chance to have a bang on it on Christmas Day, though, if it was too big?
No. So we were at my mother-in-law's for Christmas Day this year, so I didn't do any cooking. But we did have a supplementary roast a couple of days ago, because we were unhappy. Because the problem is when you go to other people's for Christmas, you don't get the leftovers. Because the best thing about Christmas dinner is all the leftovers. But if you go to someone else's, you don't get them. So we just bypass that and do a fresh roast.
100% on that. That is absolutely the best part of Christmas is the leftovers. And in many cases, the next day, the leftovers when you're whacking up Bubble and Squeak and stuff. But also, Hutchie, when we conversed earlier on today, you revealed that you'd had a roast at lunchtime today.
Yeah, that was leftover from the leftover. That was the leftover from the supplementary roast leftovers. So the party goes on. It's December the 30th, and I'm still eating roasts. So what's better than a roast?
You're still living like your name is P. Diddy. I assume you had a few bottles of Bolly with it as well.
Ow. Yeah.
Rossi, what was the highlight of your Christmas?
Going back to the lunchtime, I just had a cheese and ham sandwich this afternoon.
What?
So
I thought you meant on Christmas Day. Then.
No. My highlight of Christmas Day. Well, it wasn't really a highlight. It's a bit of a worrying thing. My niece got a new doll for her Christmas, my youngest niece, and it's one of the freakiest dolls ever. It's got massive eyes. It's just looking into your soul. And I was like, that's a freaky doll. But anyway, move on from that. I'll send you a picture of it. It is very freaky. I just love Christmas food. I just love eating and just drinking. And that's what I did. Just eat and drink and be merry, pretty much.
It is the great thing about Christmas is it's the one day of the year where all bets are off, isn't it? Literally anything goes on Christmas. You get up, you want a glass of wine for breakfast and a box of chocolates. All good, mate. It's Christmas. Do what you want. Love it. Right then, boys. From one or several highlights, Christmas, to another huge highlight, which was the start, as we've already said, the Kieran McKenna era, the new bounce, the new era, all that kind of new stuff, and it started very impressively, boys. Now, as you know, I'm not prone to hyperbole. I don't get too excited about things. I don't want to do knee-jerk reactions on this podcast. But friends, I would argue that last night's win for Ipswich Town, or indeed performance, is one of the best performances under a new manager in their first game for many a year. You put it into context. Yes, I know it's Wycombe Wanderers and all that, but Ipswich Town were playing in front of 26,000 people. It was against Wycombe, a side in the top six, fifth at the time. These are games they traditionally do not fare well in. And yet, they won 1-0. And they had to dig in and scrap it out and manage the game to the end. So, in that context, a 1-0 win in McKenna's first game was a tremendous one, was it not, Hutchie?
He's the first Ipswich manager to win their first game since Mick McCarthy in nearly coming up for 10 years. And there's been a few managers in that time. So just to win it is pretty good. Then you've said about the crowd. The last manager to have a crowd of that size, anything close to that size actually, for a first home game was Roy Keane. When he, I think there was Coventry they beat on the final day of the season after he'd just come in right at the end there. So combine that all together. Remarkable that Ipswich are even getting crowds of 26,000 at 11th place in League One on December the 29th, when they really should be significantly higher than that. But just to deliver a result like that on a big night is not what we're used to in so many ways. We've spoken about it so many times about the times we feel let down on the big occasions. So for them to come out and win like that and show so many different sides to themselves, and to show actually some progress in such a short space of time under the new manager. We'll talk about all of those points in a minute individually, I'm sure. But to put that all together and to come away with the 3 points from it, was really, really pleasing.
Now, obviously, we know earlier today, the reason why we're recording this slightly later on a Thursday is because we're expecting a decision to be made about the Lincoln game. It duly was. That Lincoln game is off, which we'll talk about in due course. But Rossi, let's focus on the positives for now. What did you make of Kieran McKenna's first game as town boss?
Well organised. I felt there was once again fight. There's always been fight in this team, but in the last few games, not so much. But no, I felt like players stepped up. Me and Andy did a video about players that should thrive under the new management, and Wolfenden stepped up, didn't he, Hutchie? He was he did everything. He was going forward. I love myself overlapping centre backs. Wolfenden and Emerson went forward a lot during the game. Even Janoy did. Janoy playing in that three at the back. But Wolfenden, he did the pretty stuff, but also did the gritty stuff as well and battled hard. So that is one of my highlights from the game, is just Wolfenden back to his best. And that's what you like to see from an academy graduate.
It's the second half of that interests me the most. We know that he is probably a better than average football player in terms of centre backs, but it's the gritty stuff there, digging in, winning balls in the air, which isn't necessarily his suit, but it's certainly Wycombe's suit. That's what strong suit. That's what they want to do, and he dealt with that well. So it was an all-round performance from him. We've got loads of players to talk about. He was my man of the match, an all-round display from him, doing the things that we know he can do and doing also the things that we know he doesn't always do. He was the top of that list of that video you just mentioned there, Ross, in the article about players that could thrive under McKenna, and he started that process. A long way to go, but he's started that process now.
I like that, Rossi. We're going to coin that. It's a Rossism. Pretty and doing the pretty and gritty stuff. I'm going to use that going forward. That's like it. Before we get going on the game itself and getting into depth, Hutchie, we need to clear one thing up and one thing only, and that is Kieran McKenna. Is he a tracksuit manager? Is he a smart clothes manager? What is he? This is very, very important. It seemed to me he was wearing what looked like a warm-up kind of jacket beforehand, had his name on, his initials on, KM. And then he came out in what looked like a smart coat, looked like he was wearing trousers. I need the answers, boys, because this is very, very important.
Yeah, he looked business, but it was business rather than business casual by the time he got out there. I think he had like a navy blue. What style of coat would you say that was? I'm not. It's just a coat, isn't it? Is it just icon? It's just a coat, I think.
It's just a winter coat, isn't it?
It's a coat. Yeah, it's a nice coat, trousers, shoes.
It's not Hugo Boss, is it?
Well, it might be. I don't know. There's no logos visible. But yeah, he was a smart manager. That was the big takeaway, wasn't it, from all of this?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was most interested in.
Yeah. But the answer is suit. Interestingly, I think the players. I meant to ask someone about this, but I didn't. I think they all arrived together on a coach for the game yesterday, which is an interesting change because normally they kind of arrive in drips and drabs in their own cars and kind of arrive at certain times. But McKenna comes from Manchester United, where they're used to. I think they have overnight stays. Manchester United in Manchester in hotels before home games and sort of travel together on buses and things like that. when I worked at the Daily Mail, we used to constantly have to use pictures of them walking in and out of the Lowry Hotel in Manchester where they were staying overnight, and they must have had some kind of advertising deal with the Lowry. The amount that ended up in there. But I wonder. I think overnight stays are maybe a bit drastic, but that's an interesting change. I'd like to ask someone about at some point. They're all arriving on a team coach together.
Interesting. Peek behind the curtains there, then, friends. What a tawdry little spell of your career, that the Daily Mail.
Oh
actually.
Yeah, good time. I've got some stories.
Yeah, you have. Right then, let's get right into it then, Hutchie. Obviously, we have to take into account a lot of the people who listen to this may not have been at the game last night, and I guess the big thing going into it was, what is Kieran McKenna football? No one knew. Is he going to unveil some batshit crazy formation no one's ever seen before? How's he going to play football? So essentially, they lined up in a 3-4-3. Is that fair to say? I know he wants it to be like water, and formation's not really important to him. It's all about adapting and all that kind of stuff. But you have to have a formation, obviously, to play football. And his was 3-4-3. What did you make of it?
I still think that the top word for Kieran McKenna is adaptable, because yes, it was a 3-4-3, and apart from the goalkeeper, obviously Christian Walton out with COVID, he kept the same team that he watched from the stands draw with Sunderland 10 days or so ago. The only slight change is that Sonny Aluko moved from sort of playing as a number 10 central attacker, moved to the right of a front three. That was the only change in terms of a system that he made. But everything he said after the game and the way he spoke about it just said to me that this was with this game in mind. We can talk about everything that we saw on the pitch and everything that we like, but I really don't think we've kind of had the big reveal, if that makes sense. This was what he thought after all the analysis, which we know is so big in what he does. That this is what he thought was the best system to go for against Wycombe. Talked about a front three, sort of matching up one-on-one and robbing on the Wycombe back three, and that was the reason for it. That it worked. As Ross said earlier, they looked organised. The back three looked organised against Sunderland, and they did so again in this one. They all had their slightly different jobs. The midfield looked organised, albeit in a slightly different way to what we've seen. The wing back / midfielders of Wes Burns and Penny, they looked organised. They knew what they had to do, and the only one that didn't look organised was James Norwood, who was nominally playing as a wide left player. But I think it was by design. He's a football player that plays off the cuff. He wasn't a left wing. He wasn't a left winger, far from it. But nominally, that's where he needed to be. But he popped up at left back. He did most of his best kind of attacking work, aggravating in the middle of the pitch, trying to free up space for Bon. And all in all, it was kind of a horse for course situation, I think. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see something just a bit different for future opponents and things like that. It's going to be fascinating, just these early weeks of Kieran McKenna, I think. Seeing some subtle tweaks. I don't think he's going to go mad. I think the back three might be something he sticks with. But in terms of everything else, I think it's just going to be really interesting to see how he goes with it.
It's going to make my life a bloody nightmare, though, Hutchie. I've got one of my roles every week for the match preview is to put in a predicted lineup and formation. And if we don't know what he's going to do every week, it's just going to be a real headache for me, man. What's he doing? Obviously, 4-2-3-1. I could basically put in 3 weeks ahead with Cook. Anyway, going back to the game,
and that's the real issue.
That is the real issue. Yeah, I mean, obviously, you mentioned there Norwood. I don't think he's ever going to be organised, is he, on a football pitch? Norwood is chaos, isn't he?
He's organised chaos. Yeah,
yeah. That's what he is. That's his strength. He's chaos. So
yeah,
let's have a bit of that. Roscoe, you've already mentioned the boy Wolfenden. Very, very impressive. I think Hutchie actually used post game. It was the most impressive game you've seen from him. Is that right?
That I can remember.
You remember,
by his own admission, Luke would tell you, I'm sure, that it's not been a great year for him. I think he described his second half of last season, first half of this year as being very, very average. At one point in pre-season, he struggled to get into this league team during this first half of this season. But some more performances like that, and he and Edmondson could be kind of first name on team sheet territory. If you're talking sort of back four, there's a vacancy alongside Edmondson if you're talking back three, there's 2 vacancies alongside Edmondson, and I'd say Wolfie has done a really good job of making one of those his own for now, and that role seems to suit Janoi Donessian really, really well. It's kind of got a little bit of all of his strengths involved there. So in terms of a back three, I think they are the 3. Not sure where Cameron Burgess fits into it, but again, we're talking horses for courses here. We've seen Cameron Burgess, notably I think it was his debut at Cheltenham, where it was all about long throws and air raids into the box. Played really well in that game. Horses for courses. It may well be that his time does come at some point, but on the face of things, the back 3 emerging there, if that's something that McKenna's going to go with long term.
I think Burgess played in the back 3 at Accrington Stanley, didn't he? Have I made
on the
that
left of it? I think he did. He did. But they're, back 3s are different wherever you are. So I'm not sure. George Edmondson played on the left of the back 3 last night. They're very different players.
Hey, Edmondson could do it all right? The fridge, number 1. Bosco, give us some more names that impressed you then. You've already mentioned overlapping centre-backs, which you seem to have on a healthy obsession with, if you don't mind me saying. Who else impressed you?
Well, we've got to mention the boy, Sam Morsey, haven't we? The skipper, showing why he is a quality footballer. And that is why, him dropping down to League One is the most surprising thing ever, because he bossed that midfield, showed that leadership, got forward. And really impressed by him. He's going to try to prove me wrong, as I said on the podcast last week or the week ago, that the season's dead. And those performances like that will prove me wrong. So hopefully that does continue. Sonny Aluko, once again, shown his quality. He was playing as a number 10, weren't he? Actually, I think, in that 3 up front.
He was more of the wide, right-ish, yeah.
So I thought he had a good game. And then Macaulay Bonne, he just needs that goal, doesn't he? His confidence very low at the moment, but seeing his teammate Norwood scoring the goals, he just needs that chance, and he needs to stay on side as well. Come on, Macaulay, stay on side.
That was absolutely infuriating. I'll be honest. I got so annoyed last night. Not for the offside goal. There was that one in the second half, wasn't there? Was it Lee Evans that was looking to slip him through Ross, and he was offside, and Evans was really annoyed with him, and both Stuart Watson and I were quite annoyed by that. It's I need to look this up, but I think at one point a few weeks ago he was second in the kind of offside league of League One, and I think he's probably still there. To be fair, that's something he needs to work on.
It's also endemic of a player just desperate to make something happen, is it? Hutchie? He's maybe just a little bit too eager, going a little bit too soon, that kind of thing.
Yeah, potentially. He worked hard last night. I think I gave him a 6 in the player ratings, which some people have agreed with. Some have said that was maybe a bit harsh. I've watched large parts of the game back, and I think he's probably 6.6 territory. It could have been rounded up to a 7. He works so hard. He does work hard, and he had some nice little flicks, held the ball up well to lead to the goal. But he just needs a goal himself. That's 10 without one now. That was unthinkable a couple of months ago, wasn't it? Just need a goal for him.
Shall we go back to Morsey? Roscoe, you mentioned there he's out to prove you wrong. Indeed, he slid into your DMs, didn't he, to tell you as much. He's going to prove you wrong. Obviously, Morsey had a notable down against Charlton, as the rest of the side did. But since then, he's been like a man possessed, hasn't he? Someone put some deep heat into his shorts before every game because he's playing like his pants are on fire. What's driving him, Hutchie? And can we see more of it, please?
Definitely want to see more of it. I enjoyed the role he was asked to play last night. He seemed to be given a bit more license, a bit more freedom to play a bit higher up the pitch. Again, I haven't looked it up. I'd like to see kind of his heat map from the game. I think he played higher, much higher, noticeably higher, and that allowed Lee Evans to kind of sweep around behind him and move the ball about. I thought Lee Evans played really well as well. But I like Morsey that bit higher. He really should have shot late on instead of laying it off for Chaplin. Chaplin also should have scored once he did get the ball. But yeah, I don't know with Morsey. Has something kind of clicked with him in the last couple of weeks? I don't know. Charlton was a poor night. He was poor. so many of his teammates were poor. I don't know. Maybe the fact of losing their manager took something out of them more than we maybe gave them credit for at that point. But something seems to have clicked with him. Some steel is in there, and I think in the last few games some shackles have come off as well, and he's started to show maybe a bit more of the quality that he can have. I wonder whether the kind of the Cook system had pigeonholed him a little bit into this is your role, this is what you do. But the shackle seems to have come off, and he seems to be playing with a bit more fire, and crucially, I think showing some quality. That I think we knew he had it, but I think he'd kind of settled into needed to be a bit more of a kind of midfield destroyer we'd talked about. But I think there's some quality in there. The little popped pass that he played through to set up Bond to cross for Norwood for the goal against Sunderland was a lovely pass. He was getting to the edge of the box last night and was looking for pop balls through again, but he seemed a bit frustrated that there weren't runs there for him. And if they can get a leader like that, leading in the way that he's leading in the last few games, that could be such a positive for them. I think he'll feel incredibly disappointed right now that he's here not with Paul Cook as his manager, because he and all of his players didn't deliver for him. I'm sure they're incredibly disappointed by that, but the reaction since that Charlton game from Wigan onwards has been really good. So if that's what the skipper's doing, it should drag some others with him.
I like him playing with a chip on his shoulder. More of that, please. And someone clearly also playing with a chip on their shoulder in terms of what's happened to him so far this season. And he's come back like the proverbial new signing, Roscoe. James Norwood, another goal last night. What do you like about him, and what's he brought to the side since his return?
I just like what Hutchin, you said earlier. He's, the unorganised way he plays the game. He gets about and he's there at the right place at the right time to score 3 goals in his last 3 starts. He knows where the net is, the goal bag is. And he's just that player that you want in League One, who will just get stuck in, won't muck about, and his celebration, what sort of tops off really, just struts and, just scored. There we go, in front of a massive crowd. And that's what we've missed, I feel. Just missed that up front. Macaulay Bond's done fantastically. I think we've just missed that sort of striker like James Norwood, who gets stuck in and he scores the goals. And it's just good that he's ended the year on a high. He's the man who scored the first goal and the last goal of 2021, James Norwood. The first goal, of course, was the goal against Swindon when we lost live on TV. But thankfully, we end the year with a 1-0 win at home, and Norwood's part of that.
Kind of caps up the craziness of the year, doesn't it? Everything that's happened in between those goals. Hutchie, the Bash brothers, Macaulay Bonne and James Norwood. I'm a very big fan of that nickname, as you may imagine. Thought, of course, for poor old Joe Pigott. Now looks like he's very much firmly on the bench. But talk a little bit about Bonne and Norwood and that kind of blossoming relationship they seem to have. How did it work last night?
Well, I think it starts with them being incredibly close off the pitch, which they clearly are. They've both spoken in recent days about enjoying each other's company, kind of supporting each other. Obviously, we know that James Norwood has had an odd few months. We also know that Macaulay Bonne's had some tough times in his personal life of late. And I think they're a good influence on each other by the sounds of things. But on the pitch, they're 2 players that have come up through kind of non-league. Norwood with Tranmere and Forest Green before that, and then Bonne with I think had some loans as well as a significant time with Orient in non-league, and that's where the Bash Brothers things comes from. I think it's two guys that aren't afraid of the kind of the rough and tumble. They enjoy winding opponents up on the pitch. Some of those non-league values in the professional game potentially, and they do work well off each other. But Norwood and Bonne to a lesser extent, but Norwood obviously works off the cuff. Bonne's he does a bit of that himself as well. They're there for each other. Norwood's coming inside and trying to make space for Bonn. What I really want to see, and I've gone back through recently and watched kind of all the goals from the first half of this season, and there's one goal in particular that I'd really like to see these two kind of replicate. And it's on the final day against Fleetwood, if you remember, Norwood kind of comes inside, drops deep, slightly number 10-y, gets on the ball and slips this beautiful pass through for Troy Parrott to score against Fleetwood on the final day. And I think they could combine like that. Norwood didn't have the best game on the ball last night, but he can see those little popped passes, little off the cuff, first time knocks through. And if those two are on the same wavelength of each other, which they are, you can take defences by surprise. That's how Burns and Bonn have worked so well. They're on the same wavelength. Quick thinking from Burns to cross balls quickly finds Bonn maybe getting half a yard on a defender. And if Bonn and Norwood can kind of have that kind of link up as well, which there's every reason to think they can, I think they could be a dangerous pairing on the pitch, whichever kind of system formation they're kind of lining up in.
Yeah. I mean, the Bash Brothers sums them up, doesn't it? They would be a nightmare to play against, I'd imagine, the two of them, because they're just constantly be in your face, constantly bringing that physical threat and the kind of unpredictability of someone like James Norwood as well. Fantastic. You know who the original Bash Brothers were, boys? Bit of edutainment on the Kings of Anglia pod. You are right, Roscoe. Baseball. Do you know the names of the original Bash Brothers?
I just Googled it, by the way. I didn't actually know that.
I'm going to say it seemed unlikely. Yeah. Mark Maguire and Jose Canseco back in the day for the Oakland A's, both latterly known in their career for being chemically enhanced, shall we say, and breaking all sorts of records in baseball. Big old boys. Yes.
And there's also, for wrestling fans out there, there's actually a duo.
Can we stop this now, please?
Carry on.
Wrestling.
No, please carry on, Ross.
Yeah, go on. Carry on.
Just basically, there's two brothers called the Bash Brothers, basically composed of Doug Basham and Danny Basham and Bash Brothers. There we go. Move on.
Well, we know Norwood's a big wrestling fan, don't we? So
that's what I thought.
Yeah. A note too, boys, on last night. You mentioned there was only one change, but it was a relatively big change because Christian Walton's been the unquestioned number one. Obviously suffering with COVID, and hope he recovers soon. So Vaclav Hadke had to come in to a very big game, having had very much an up and down season and lost his starting spot. How did he do, Hutchie?
He kept a clean sheet.
Yeah,
we're sitting here talking about a clean sheet, which obviously is not to be sniffed at, and he got it done, kind of by hook or by crook. I've got to say, I'm not hugely convinced from what I've seen. It's hard. It's maybe harsh to be sort of saying this after a game against Wycombe, which is kind of the extreme of balls of being on top of you. But there were some moments where I was incredibly nervous last night about that. Pinned to line, pinned behind defenders. The punches were fine in the end; they got them away. But another day, you've kind of. I want to see my goalkeeper coming and really claiming that, which is something we've seen from Christian Walton, that he can do that. I want to see my goalkeeper coming and just being a little bit more commanding. I can't, he kept a clean sheet. He got the job done and found a way to get those balls away, which ultimately you can't really sit here and grumble. And I won't. Well, I have, but officially I'm not grumbling. But I just want to see a bit more of a command of the 6-yard box from a goalkeeper, if it's me talking.
Fair enough.
Which it is.
It is. And we're pleased to say it is you talking. Roscoe, now it's your time to talk. Give us some more notes from last night. Who else impressed you? What else stood out? Maybe as we draw a line under it and start talking about Mr. McKenna as a boss.
I want to just bring back an oldie but a goldie.
Václav Holacki.
And that is the highlight, is just the clean sheet. I've looked back at the stats. I hope I got it right, although I'm really bad with stats. That's our first clean sheet since the 13th of November. Of course, the goalless draw against Oxford. So, getting a clean sheet in front of that massive crowd, I'm sure that helps the fence out. I'm sure the geezer, Flagley, or whatever his name is. I should use the translator. I'm sure
Let's just go with the geezer.
The geezer.
The geezer. But no, I think that helps to cause a lot, doesn't it, for defence getting a clean sheet. Matt Penny, I think we should mention him a little bit. I think Matt Penny had a good game. He's had a bit of a tough start to life at Town. He's had a few bad games. He's had a few little injuries and knocks, but I thought he had a good game playing that left wing back role.
That's going to suit him, isn't it? That role in terms of what he brings to the table, Hutchie.
Yeah, it should do. Yeah, I'd agree with Ross there. I think he did have a good game. I would say he wasn't able to get forward as much as Burns did on the opposite flank, but I think that's as much to do with Wycombe attacking more down their right, and also the fact he had James Norwood in front of him on the left, which is organised chaos, which sometimes means you have extra defensive help, sometimes means you have none. But that's fine. And Penny got through it well. Yeah, I was quite impressed with Penny last night. Something needs to happen at left back. Hopefully that's Penny stepping up and taking that position. But the fact Hayden Coulson's been out for so long has been a blow. But it's nice to see Penny kind of getting back in the groove after some difficult times, as Ross said.
Okay, then, boys. What do we make then of Kieran McKenna thus far? We've obviously only seen his team play once, but he's been in situ for a couple of weeks now. I was really taken with something, Ross, a phrase that the guy from the Man United podcast used when you spoke to him about McKenna. He said he's got a reputation as being schoolmasterly, like a teacher, a stern old teacher. And I must say, in his demeanour, that very much comes across. And it's maybe me being unfair to him. I haven't had the interaction with him that you've had, Hutchie, but he just seemed very serious. And I just wish he'd smile a bit and show that he's enjoying things. Maybe. I mean, we did at least get a bit of a fist pump last night, which I liked because gave us an excellent back picture for their back page picture for the paper. Going back to that schoolmaster thing, I wonder if maybe insisting they all travel on the coach together to a game is all part of that demeanour. What do you make of him so far, Hutchie?
I really like him. He's my kind of guy. I like the explanations he gives for things. Why are you laughing?
Because he is your type of guy. It's exactly.
Yeah.
Doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low.
Yeah, he is. I like him. I like the way he explains things. I like the level of openness he's willing to give. I like the way that he's so clear in what he thinks, but yet adaptable with it. Yeah, I like him. I can't say I know the guy. We've not had that many opportunities to kind of get to know him, but from after he finished doing his post-match press last night, he kind of hung about for only for like 30 seconds, 40 seconds or something. But he hung about and just explained something tactically, just kind of off, just once the interview had finished, just to impart that knowledge. Whereas to us, just interesting. Whereas there was a sense where at times kind of Paul Cook couldn't get away quick enough, and look, I understand that as well. They have to do like 3-4 interviews after games, and their main job is to get a football team winning, not to talk to us. But I just really like him. I hope he's incredibly successful, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he develops as a manager, because I think we have to remember that this was obviously he's kind of been part of leadership groups for so many football matches over a long period as coaching. He has led teams before, but never a senior team. But there's so much to this job that he's kind of experiencing for the first time, like doing the post-match press like that, organising, actually being the one that fully organises how teams get to the game. I saw him, I ended up kind of following him up the stairs into one of the executive areas last night to kind of have the debrief with Mark Ashton in the corridor at Portman Road. That's all new to him. And I'm just fascinated just to be able to watch someone kind of grow into all of that. And that's going to be the thing that interests me the most over the next few months or so, just learning to be the man, having been like a man. He's now the man.
He's a young man. What did he explain to you post-game, Hutchie, tactics-wise? That sounds interesting. Can we divulge, or is it a top secret?
I don't think it's top secret. It's just expanding on something he had in the It wasn't. It was just talking more about the three centre backs and why on this occasion they were able to step forward a bit more than they might potentially be able to do against other teams. I had my head down in my laptop, still handing out arbitrary player ratings to football players at the time. So he wasn't speaking to myself directly.
Yeah.
But it was just interesting.
He
loves football.
Yeah.
And he takes his football very, very seriously. And that's probably why he was the assistant manager of Manchester United at 35 without any playing career behind him. That's probably how that managed to happen.
Am I being a little unfair to him then to describe him as a bit dull?
Do you think I'm dull?
Oh,
No, you're not dull, but your demeanour is very understated, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's probably the word. Yeah, understated. I don't think he's dull at all. But he might not be the kind of person you want to go out for beers with. But I wouldn't say he's dull. He's I think understated is the word. I can be dull. You're allowed to say it.
Everyone can be dull, my friend. But famously, of course, Sir Alf Ramsey, as interesting as a dry stone wall, I'm led to believe. And he was absolutely obsessed with football as well, wasn't he? I remember speaking to Tony Garnett, one of my forerunners in this role as sports editor, who said that Alf basically couldn't talk about anything other than football, any other kind of conversation he wasn't interested in. So,
I think I had that sense about Paul Cook, if I'm completely honest. But obviously at a different end of the dull scale. He's you would never call him dull.
I'd just like to go back and just put on record for the house. I didn't call you dull, Hutchie.
I don't know. I just think it was an interesting route into that conversation, and we've come out having learnt a little bit more, haven't we?
Yeah. I mean, you can also say he's got very good teeth, Kieran McKenna, which is important. He still needs a nickname. I think K Money is far too dynamic for him. I see there's been KMC squared out there. Got to do something with. I mean, we've already got a Macca, haven't we? Macaulay Bonds Macca. Can we do something with Mac? Is it Mac the Knife? Is he Mystic Mac like Conor? I don't know, but still work to be done there. But Rossi, what do you make of him? I know Hutchie loves him, and you're a big fan of him as well, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah, he's grown on me. As I said, the first interview I saw of him, I thought, oh God, he's very dull. But he's grown on me. I think he's saying the right things. He's not a cliche book. He's not chucking the cliches out there, which I like to see. And when I was watching the interview last night, he's not chucked the nicknames. I know you love nicknames. So I don't think he's going to be using nicknames. I don't know if he's maybe still early in his job. He wasn't calling Macaulay Bon Macca. He wasn't calling Norwood Nors. He was saying James and Macaulay.
Again, that's like a schoolmaster, isn't it? That really fits.
But maybe he's not ready yet. He's not ready. He doesn't feel that he's ready to do the nicknames, chucking the nicknames out.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I mean, if you had a good teacher at school, it's one of the most important things in life, isn't it? Someone you respected and you learned from. So that could absolutely be 100% a good thing. Yeah, there you go. Where am I going? Where am I going now, boys? I've lost track. Kieran McKenna. From Kieran McKenna to something we learned this morning, boys. He started well, and we were hoping he was going to get a chance to build on that at the weekend. But unfortunately, he's not. He's going to have a little enforced break. He had an enforced break before his first game, and now he's going to have an enforced break after his first win. Lincoln City, that game on Saturday at Portman Road, the last of the pack-out Portman Road festive fixtures, is unfortunately not going to happen, Hutchie. Lincoln have got COVID in the camp. They say they can't raise a team. How are you feeling about this?
That's really disappointing, isn't it? I was really looking forward to it. We've missed out on Boxing Day football for 2 years in a row now. New Year's Day is also another really good football day. New horizons, start of something new. All of that. It's going to be missing. Very, very disappointing. Very frustrating as well, because we don't know the full detail of what's going on at Lincoln. We obviously know the situation in the country at the moment and how everything's kind of taking off again, but it does sound like Lincoln were really hoping to play or showing intention to play before having more cases overnight, which just made it impossible for them. It's incredibly frustrating. It's very interesting to see how the EFL are ultimately going to deal with this, if they are going to deal with this at all. Because every time there's one of these call-offs, you talk about the EFL are going to inspect all aspects of why this game was called off, but that's been happening for. We don't hear the outcome of these investigations and inquiries into exactly why. It's getting, if this goes on with games being called off, that schedule's going to get horribly packed in again. So yeah, very, very frustrating. It doesn't feel great from my point of view. I think there's certainly more that can be done to make sure these games are played. It's incredibly frustrating. I know AFC Wimbledon have voiced their kind of frustration at this in the last few days. They've lost most of their Christmas schedule despite themselves being good to go for all of their games. They've seen opponents drop out. So there's a lot of rising frustration here.
They just need to play the games, don't they? I mean, make do and mend, as it were. Even if you have to call in youth players, that's. I mean, if as a club had a massive injury crisis, they wouldn't get to call a game off, would they?
Yeah, this is the thing. Like, it's obviously we know the situation with COVID. It's kind of extraordinary, but you're also talking about teams saying they, combined with COVID cases and injuries, wouldn't have been able to raise a side. I don't see why the injured side of things is kind of okay to be thrown in the mix there. Ipswich are in a situation where they have an abundance of players. Clearly we know that there's been some cases in the Ipswich squad with Christian Walter missing out, Cameron Burgess, and Ciala, Edwards and Harper all kind of back, those three back from COVID now. But Ipswich have repeatedly been praised for the way they've managed it. The EFL have said, sort of have lifted them up as an example of how to manage the spread of COVID, and Ipswich have this time around, they had it last Christmas, but this time around have managed to kind of limit all of those spreads and been able to put teams on the field, albeit with a big squad. But the rules are there. It's 14 players as long as there's a goalkeeper available, and it does make you wonder what is the point of kind of under 23s football and youth football if they're not there to be called. I do wonder actually whether, I think there's kind of a shutdown over Christmas and New Year period of 23s football, like that Ipswich's under 23s don't have a match schedule over Christmas and New Year for several weeks, whether that has played a part at the moment, if those players just aren't available to teams because of that shutdown. I'm not sure, but it's incredibly frustrating, and if it goes on for many more weeks, it really is going to shunt that fixture schedule together in the final weeks of the season.
And then you are going to get a splurge of injuries, aren't you? Because there's going to be so many games. Players,
yeah.
You want to say something, Rossi? You're itching to get involved.
Yeah. So I don't want to interrupt. I'll try my best to be
professional. I like it.
Professional, yes. I'm bringing back old friend Paul Lambert here. This is a bit different. It's not COVID, but it's when he was postponing games because we had international call-ups. It was like Idris El Mazouni, Alan Judge, whatever. And I know that at that point, I know we were frustrated, and I think fans were frustrated. I know it's a different situation, but those are just pointless postponements when you could just play some of these youth players. Just play them. If they're good enough, they're good enough. So that's just my take on that.
Absolutely. Having said all that, Hutchie, could it actually end up being a good thing for Town, because now McKenna's going to have even more time on the training ground with him? He's clearly made an impact already in the very brief time he's had with them so far, and he does seem, from everything that you've said, to have a very fulsome approach to explaining roles and what he wants, and something that I'm sure players can really buy into and really kind of understand what he wants from them. So could this actually be a good thing by the time we see Town play again at Gillingham on January the 8th?
Yeah. That's the next one, isn't it? Boxing Day rearranged. For me, I'd say the same as I said for the last time. I'd want them to play. I think. I think as much as I think you will see a benefit to the Gillingham game. I think you're right. I think another 5 training sessions or whatever they're able to get in that period will be a significant sort of move for them to be able to move some things on and prepare. But for me, I think McKenna would probably say the same. Play. I'd want to see them play. I'd want if they're going to do anything with this season, then for all we've talked about last night being so positive, and it was, all it did was maintain the 10-point gap to the playoffs, which everyone above them, basically everybody above them, has a game in hand, I think. So it's a mammoth task, huge task to overcome all of that to reach the playoffs. But if they're going to have a chance of doing it, they need momentum and to get wins. And Lincoln, COVID hit Lincoln or not, would have been a good opportunity to get back-to-back victories. And if your new manager's getting back-to-back victories in their first 2 games, that's huge. That is a new manager bounce. We don't normally see it, but that would be. And I think it was a big opportunity for them to get another 3 points. So I'm really disappointed, for not just because of the occasion and how good it is to start with a game on New Year's Day, just it was an opportunity to win again. And I think that's a real disappointment, because it's now going to be a Tuesday night sandwiched in somewhere else, and you never know what kind of form, mood anyone's going to be in by that point. I think they'd have won this game if it had been played, and I think they'd have gone to Gillingham looking to make it 3 wins in a row. But as it is, they'll just have to start that process slightly differently. Doesn't mean they can't win 3 games in a row, though.
Of course not. Okay, well, time will tell on that one. Before we move on to something different, just a reminder to please support our sponsors, Manscaped. Use the code KOA at manscaped.com for 20% off and free delivery. Looking to sort out your nether region, getting into the new year, those New Year parties that we can have. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. But whatever you're doing, get yourself some KOA, some Manscaped goods using the code KOA at manscaped.com. Right then, boys. It's the last show of 2021. The next time we speak, it will be 2022. You get to have that annoying conversation every year, don't you, where you say to someone, I'll speak to you next year. That kind of stuff. So let's reflect, boys, shall we? You like that, didn't you, Ross? Let's reflect briefly, shall we, on 2021, because it's been, by all accounts, a crazy, mental, insane, completely unexpected, unrivaled 2021 for Ipswich Town. Ross, I'm going to come to you first, because you're putting together an A to Z video on the year. So how will you reflect when you're old and grey like me in another 5 years' time? How will you reflect on 2021?
It's hard to just put in one word, really, because it has been, as you said, crazy, mental, insane, unexpected. Pretty much just copying what you just said. But no, new era, 4.0, Tuchel sacked, USA, Marcus Evans leaving, Portman Road looking back, back to its old glory. And that's one takeaway as well, is Portman Road just looking great again, outside.
What were those things? Sorry to interrupt, by the way. I noticed on game day last night, behind all the guys as they were talking, they're like a little roundup of big. Was it big games that there are? I haven't been to Portman Road for a little while. So, what are all those things they put up outside Portman Road?
So, they're new things that they were put up. I think was about a month ago now.
Yeah.
But just classic games, and there's some classic quotes from Bobby Robson and other different managers. But it looks superb.
Yeah.
It looks fantastic. And once again, for fans, just to have pictures next to it, next to Bobby Robson, and even Macaulay Bonds, he's behind you, is there as well. So a modern day thing as well. So, but no, it's looking good.
They're all North Stand moments, they are.
Yeah.
So Macaulay Bonne is remarkable for a lone player to come in and get a picture on the stadium within 4 months of him joining is pretty ridiculous.
Didn't even score the goal.
Yeah, didn't even score.
Hutchie, how will you remember 2021 when we sit down in years to come and you have a little Diet Coke and I have a pint of whiskey? What
a pint?
Yeah, come on. I'm tough. Tough. Anyway, moving on. Hutchie, how will you remember 2021?
It's kind of the year where everything changed, yet everything stayed the same.
Oh, profound.
At Ipswich Town. I'm going deep. But it did, didn't it? Everything has changed, but yet here we are. Hopefully, heading off, send off with a small positive, like a nice positive at the end of 2021. But everything has changed, yet we can still feel cynical about Ipswich Town if we want. This is what Ipswich do. They're still 11th in League One. It's not. There's been false dawns along the way, but hopefully, hopefully we really look back. What we really do looking back at 2021 is looking back at it as the year where something started. It's been a false start. I think we can all agree that the new owners came in and were instantly in the middle of a record run of kind of 10 hours without a goal. We should have known then that it wasn't going to be easy. The massive excitement turnaround of players yielded a what is looking now to be a terrible start that they're battling to recover from. But even despite all of that, they've ended the year with more than 50,000 fans at the final 2 games of the stadium. Massive positivity despite being 11th in League One, and I truly hope that when you're absolutely smashed on your pint of whiskey, we'll be talking about how 2021 was when it all started, and then we could have a laugh about how rubbish the start was, and how Paul Cook, he was the first manager of Ipswich Town under the new ownership. Didn't remember that, and then hopefully we're just looking back at some great stuff that's followed, because there is the foundation there. There's a lot of positivity there. Things are changing, like Ross has said, even silly things like posters and stickers on stadiums. I think they probably did that, Ross, just to give you a nice background for your videos, which is very kind of them. But it looks great, and hopefully just a foundation year that's the springboard for the positive times that everyone connected to Ipswich deserves after so long.
Don't drink a pint of whiskey, by the way, kids. That's very, very, very unhealthy. And certainly, if I'd had a pint of whiskey, I probably wouldn't be talking about Town's year in 2021. Certainly not in any kind of coherent sentence. Anyway, I sitting here now, boys. If we were sat here this time last year, Paul Lambert was still in charge of Ipswich Town. They weren't even playing games. We're in the middle of a global pandemic. We didn't really know when they were going to play again. It's mad, isn't it? I think probably the thing I remember most about 2021 is Demolition Man. I think that was kind of an iconic thing, wasn't it? That phrase, and then the manager doing exactly as he said he was going to do, and being Demolition Man, completely sweeping aside everything, and then ending up on the old rubble pile himself. Incredible. And also the fact that in any other year, a referee sticking the nut in on a Town player would have been one of these stories of the year, and we just forget about it. It's like, that happened as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done some I'm halfway through writing some end of year awards, and there's a forgotten moment award that I've put in there, and that's that moment, Judge. And like you say, that would be the moment of the year in most, especially 2 seasons where they've finished a season mid-table in League One and then still finished the end of the calendar year mid-table in League One. The time the referee tried to headbutt the player would be the big one, wouldn't it? But it's probably not even in the top 10.
Yeah, it's honestly crazy. And I feel genuinely that as we sit here now, compared to if we sat here this time last year having the same conversation, Ipswich Town now are in a better place, aren't they? There's so much more good feeling about the direction of the club, the whole setup. The owners of the club owned with passion, run with passion, managed with passion, even if he's a bit of a school teacher. As we head into 2022, there's a lot to be positive about, isn't there? And obviously, the other thing I remember, Hutchie, which one should always remember, is that a win is better than a loss. We encountered that phrase for the first time. When's that going up on the Portman Road signage, by the way? Is that...
Well, McKenna's got his first win, hasn't he? So
yeah,
I think that's probably what he said to the players before they went out, both for the game and after it as well.
Superb. He must subscribe to that. Right then, boys. Any other thoughts on 2021 before we take our leave and I do my usual shambolic outro?
Too many to mention. I think we've covered its vibe, haven't we? We've covered. Everyone knows what happens.
We've got this, haven't we?
Yeah,
We've got that. Okay, then, friends. Well, there you go. This is the last podcast of 2021, at least from the KOA flagship pod. I don't know if you've got a fan social one scheduled in, Rossi. The answer is
Possibly, but no.
Excellent. The answer is possibly. Superb. All right then, friends. Well, please support our sponsors, like I say, KOA, Manscaped. Use the code KOA at manscaped.com for 20% off and free delivery. Also, please follow us across all our social medias, the Kings of Anglia on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. We've had a few of those recently. That's really good because it helps us in terms of visibility in the charts. More people get to see us. Boys, in terms of any other business, before we sign off, I'm interested to know if any of you or any of the listeners encounter this every year. This time of year is a very dangerous time for young, sort of middle-aged Mr. Heath now. My wife is very fastidious when it comes to the appearance of the house. And so we get to this point of the year and she's itching already to get the Christmas tree down and all the lights down. It's a messy, she says. And then she always goes a bit further and starts eyeing up stuff that I own, because that's clutter. She goes into the TV room and starts kind of pointing at things that I cherish and going, do you really need that though? It's a bit messy in here, isn't it? Why don't you throw that away? And it makes me anxious every year because these are things that are important to me. And I only get one room in the house where I really have any say. So that TV room is sacrosanct to me. Do you have similar issues with your better halves, boys?
Mate, over my shoulder, as you know, is a rack of football shirts.
Yeah, let me tell you. Yeah.
The working from home, the kind of the new shift to work from home as we do now, has meant that this spare bedroom has become my domain.
Yeah.
Had COVID not happened, there was no way those 2 football shirts behind you would be on the wall. Neither would that rugby shirt there. There'd be no rack of football shirts there. There's a TV in here now. That was never in here. There's also some old boxes of stuff that need to be got rid of. But this is my little safe haven for that.
Yeah.
I can do what I want in here. And it's great to have that level of authority in my own house that I can. What's under threat in your what kind of things are under threat?
So basically, in our house, I'm lucky enough that I've got I say we've got a TV room, which is where I have all my sports memorabilia, my whiskey, my cigars, all that kind of stuff. I sound terribly old when I say that, don't I?
Pipe in there, slippers, flat caps.
So there is a bit of clutter in there, but it's meant to be kind of memories from my career and sporting memories and that kind of stuff. And it's the one place in the house that is mine, kind of, more than anything else. But every year she'll kind of start picking up, well, what's this? Do you really need this little model of Doc Brown from Back to the Future? Yes, I do. I really do need that. Do you really need this old boxing glove? It's old. That's the idea. It's an old boxing glove. There we go. Look, Joe, that would be straight in. Let me tell you, mate, straight in the bin. The Joe Johnson bobblehead. That's never passing muster in my household. So I'm just interested to know if other people face this kind of anxiety at this time of year, as their better halves, husbands, boyfriends, girlfriends, wives, whatever, decide they want to do an early year spring clean of the house with all my stuff or your stuff. Let us know. Anyway, friends, that's an aside. Do let us know about that. The final show of 2021 is in the books, and next time we speak to you, it'll be 2022. We'll speak to you, friends, next year. Have a great New Year's Eve, and we'll speak to you again next time.